In the shadow of the Oriath Expanse, where stellar winds tore across the void and alien megastructures loomed like silent sentinels, humanity had long been underestimated by the great galactic powers, a civilization dismissed as primitive, emotional, and unworthy of consideration. Yet within the hidden corners of Earth and the outer colonies, human ingenuity and resilience thrived quietly, developing technologies, strategies, and cultural cohesion that no observer from the stars could predict. The first signals of crisis arrived through intercepted transmissions from the Tlar Collective, an aggressive empire known for subjugating lesser species, who had identified a minor human outpost on the fringe of neutral space and dismissed its presence as insignificant, planning a punitive strike to assert their dominance. The humans stationed there, unaware of the magnitude of the political currents flowing through the galaxy, focused on daily survival, research, and the maintenance of their interstellar communications network. But the attack came with terrifying swiftness, a fleet of Tlar cruisers appearing from hyperspace with weapon arrays calibrated to obliterate planetary defenses. And yet, even as the first salvo struck and shields strained, the humans exhibited an almost instinctual coordination, deploying autonomous countermeasures, redirecting energy grids, and launching drones that executed maneuvers so precise that even the alien commanders began to suspect their intelligence estimates had been flawed. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the Council of Unified Nations monitored the conflict, aware that the skirmish could unravel decades of diplomatic efforts and treaties, yet choosing restraint, calculating that direct intervention could escalate into a galaxy-spanning war. Within this tension, a human named Elara Voss, captain of the orbital defense frigate Aegis Sentinel, coordinated a desperate counteroffensive. Her crew, drawn from multiple nations, ethnicities, and disciplines, worked with fluidity that bordered on the instinctual, employing improvisation, ingenuity, and the kind of psychological resilience honed over centuries of earthbound conflicts. The aliens, expecting fear and submission, found themselves facing unanticipated tactics. Energy shield modulations that adapted in real time, electronic warfare protocols that turned the Tlar communications against their own fleet, and kinetic projectiles guided with uncanny precision. Every failed attempt by the Tlar only tightening the noose of human strategy, as Elara watched holographic readouts flicker with enemy losses. She realized that this engagement was no longer about survival, but about revealing to the galaxy the hidden potency of humanity, and in the outer colonies, scattered human settlements, previously considered inconsequential, began to transmit coded signals and tactical updates, forming a mesh of collective intelligence that amplified human efficiency. The Tlar High Command, perplexed and increasingly desperate, underestimated the speed at which humans could adapt, evolve tactics, and synchronize actions across interstellar distances. Meanwhile, the humans, while fiercely defensive, were also protective of the local alien species who had suffered under the Tlar yoke, establishing safe zones and evacuation corridors for the endangered populations. Acts of compassion that simultaneously drew the admiration of lesser civilizations and the ire of the oppressors. This complex interplay of strategic brilliance, moral clarity, and unrelenting courage forced the Tlar to rethink their assumptions about human nature, even as initial reinforcements from allied galactic powers began to arrive. Hesitant and uncertain, the humans, unified by shared purpose and guided by leaders who had internalized lessons from centuries of warfare, utilized misdirection, feints, and environmental advantages of asteroid fields, debris clouds, and gravitational anomalies to devastating effect. The aliens, whose doctrine emphasized overwhelming firepower and rigid hierarchies, found their formations disrupted repeatedly, each encounter eroding not only their ships but their confidence and morale, even as the first of the minor allied species joined the human defense effort, providing knowledge of local spatial phenomena and weak points in the Tlar vessels. Humanity's reputation, long dismissed as weak and reactive, began to grow in. Whispered reports across the stars, messages carried by fleeing scientists, smugglers, and observers who chronicled the inexplicable tenacity, strategic foresight, and ethical restraint of human forces. Back on the home front, diplomats and scientists debated how much of humanity's capability should remain hidden, understanding that a revelation of their full strength could provoke future conflicts, yet recognizing that failure to act decisively could lead to the extinction of entire species. Within the expanse, the battle continued with escalating intensity, human forces employing a combination of advanced cloaking maneuvers, gravity field manipulation, and quantum communication networks that allowed instant coordination across light years. Alien commanders, for all their centuries of conquest, found themselves bewildered by tactics that seemed to anticipate their moves before they were executed. Every victory by the humans reinforced a narrative that had long been ignored. That humanity was not only resilient, but possessed a moral and strategic sophistication that could challenge even the most dominant galactic empires. And as the Tlar fleet suffered repeated setbacks, their council debated retreat, fearing that prolonging the conflict could trigger intervention from other human contingents or allied civilizations inspired by Earth's example. Within this crucible of spaceborne warfare, human leaders like Elara Voss, Admiral Chun, and strategist Amara Singh balanced aggression with restraint, demonstrating that protection of the weak, the defense of justice, and the clever application of technology could turn what appeared to be vulnerability into unparalleled strength. Every maneuver, every choice, and every act of courage sent ripples through the galaxy, signaling that humanity, underestimated and scorned, was emerging as a force whose influence could no longer be ignored. The humans' combination of adaptive thinking, moral clarity, and relentless ingenuity would come to define the conflict, and as the first Tlar ships began retreating under coordinated human fire, the galaxy bore witness to a revelation long denied, that when humans defend the weak, even empires tremble in silence, and the seeds of a new order, shaped by human resilience, intellect, and compassion, were quietly taking root among the stars. As the remnants of the Tlar fleet retreated into the void, limping and shattered, human forces maintained vigilant pursuit, not out of malice but out of necessity, ensuring that no lingering threat could regroup and harm the vulnerable species they had sworn to protect. The aftermath of the first engagement rippled across the Oriath Expanse, where word of humanity's unexpected prowess traveled faster than light, carried by surviving scouts, merchants, and interstellar travelers who had witnessed the precision, courage, and relentless coordination of human crews. In the heart of the Exodus corridors, minor alien races that had suffered for centuries under Tlar oppression began tentatively to rally, inspired by the humans' example, providing intelligence, resources, and safe harbors to the scattered human fleets, a network of solidarity that grew almost organically, guided by trust, shared survival instincts, and the clear moral compass demonstrated by human command. Back on Earth, the Council of Unified Nations convened emergency sessions, analyzing the scale of the conflict and the implications of the humans' victories, understanding that their restrained response thus far had allowed humanity to grow into a force capable of altering the balance of galactic power. Diplomatic envoys debated the ethics and necessity of full disclosure, while military strategists marveled at the adaptive tactics, unconventional maneuvers, and near-prescient coordination displayed by humans operating at extreme distances. Within the colonies, leaders like Governor Tariq Saud and Admiral Ilyana Petrov worked tirelessly to consolidate defenses, fortify key positions, and ensure that every species under human protection had access to the resources, knowledge, and strategic guidance needed to survive ongoing threats. Simultaneously, the Tlar High Command faced a crisis of confidence, their rigid hierarchies and centuries-old doctrine proving incapable of countering the fluid, morally driven, and highly adaptive strategies of the humans. Internal dissent and blame began to fracture their ranks, while whispers of human ingenuity and ferocity began to inspire fear, resentment, and disbelief among allied empires, some of whom had previously dismissed Earth as a minor player in galactic politics, as human scientists worked alongside engineers and military tacticians. Innovations emerged at an unprecedented pace, including stealth propulsion systems that exploited gravitational anomalies, energy redirection matrices that turned enemy fire against itself, and artificial intelligence networks that could anticipate enemy movements without violating human ethical constraints. Every technological leap was coupled with careful consideration of collateral impact, ensuring that even in the chaos of war, humanity's protective ethos remained intact. Meanwhile, the minor species who had suffered under Tlar control found their voices amplified through human advocacy, establishing communication channels with other galactic powers, and leveraging Earth's emerging reputation to secure safe zones and humanitarian corridors. These actions, seemingly simple in execution, compounded to create a strategic advantage that no amount of raw firepower could counter. Back on the battlefield, Elara Voss orchestrated simultaneous strikes across multiple fronts, coordinating with distant human colonies, using quantum entanglement communications that rendered light. Speed delays irrelevant. The aliens, for all their fleets and weaponry, were continually outmaneuvered, their calculations proving inadequate against human unpredictability, adaptability, and the sheer scale of coordinated effort. In one critical engagement near the asteroid belt of Nithra, a squadron of human frigates executed a maneuver that disrupted enemy formations, trapping several cruisers in gravitational eddies they could neither escape nor correct, the spectacle of alien ships being captured, disabled, or forced into surrender without the loss of a single human vessel sent shockwaves across the sector. Reports of these events were broadcast clandestinely to Allied civilizations, who had long feared Tlar dominance, demonstrating that humans, though underestimated, possessed the intelligence, coordination, and moral resolve to challenge galactic hegemony. Within Tlar command centers, debates raged, some urging retreat and diplomacy, while others, driven by pride and the desperation of survival, pushed for renewed aggression. But every offensive was met with an adaptive countermeasure, a feint that exposed vulnerabilities, or humanitarian action that simultaneously safeguarded innocence while punishing the oppressors. Slowly, the pattern became undeniable. Humanity's interventions were not random acts of defense, but a carefully orchestrated strategy combining protection, tactical innovation, and psychological leverage. And as each Tlar defeat accumulated, morale plummeted while internal dissent intensified. Minor species formerly under Tlar oppression began to openly collaborate with humans, sharing tactical insights, historical knowledge of local star systems, and even unique technologies that augmented human strategies. The collaborative network that emerged was not merely a military alliance, but a coalition of survival and ethical solidarity, demonstrating that humanity's influence was rooted as much in its moral principles as its martial prowess. Back on Earth, the Council began to recognize that humans had moved beyond localized defense into a position of galactic significance. Their ability to protect the weak, innovate under pressure, and coordinate across unimaginable distances was redefining power structures. While in the Tlar remnants, leaders were forced to question their assumptions, realizing that every misjudgment of human capability had brought them closer to irrelevance. As humans liberated planets, established safe corridors and coordinated rescue efforts, the galaxy observed in awe and trepidation, gradually understanding that the very traits that had been dismissed, resilience, compassion, adaptability, and unity, were precisely what made humanity an unstoppable force when provoked. And as the stars themselves bore silent witness, the first whispers of a new order, guided by the principles of justice, protection, and strategic brilliance, began to circulate among the stellar nations, signaling that, when humans defended the weak, entire empires could fall in silence, their pride and arrogance replaced by a wary respect they could neither ignore nor easily recover from. The aftermath of the Nithra engagement left the Tlar scrambling to reassess every assumption about humanity, as word of the humans' coordinated liberation campaign spread across the Oriath Expanse. A series of emergent alliances began to form. Minor species and outlying colonies who had once lived in fear now started actively seeking contact with human commanders, offering intelligence, resources, and guidance through treacherous sectors, while humans, under leaders like Admiral Ilyana Petrov and Strategist Amara Singh, carefully integrated this information into their operational planning. Their approach was methodical, combining patience with precision, never allowing pride to dictate action, and always balancing aggression with restraint to minimize unnecessary destruction. The Tlar, accustomed to unilateral dominance, found themselves forced into defensive postures, their fleets constantly maneuvering to counter human unpredictability. And yet every tactic they employed was anticipated, mitigated, or turned against them in subtle ways that revealed the depth of human strategic thinking. As human engineers worked to repair and upgrade vessels mid-conflict, the colonies developed their own improvisational defenses, constructing makeshift orbital platforms, automated drone swarms, and rapid response units that supplemented human forces. Each innovation reflecting an adaptability that no rigid imperial doctrine could contain. On the diplomatic front, human envoys quietly reached out to neutral civilizations, offering protection and mutual cooperation, presenting themselves not merely as conquerors or warriors, but as moral and intelligent partners capable of stabilizing regions previously lost to chaos. This combination of military prowess and ethical leadership created an unexpected multiplier effect, bolstering morale among allies while undermining the Tlaar's credibility. Meanwhile, within Tlaar command councils, factions debated strategy heatedly, some advocating for total withdrawal to preserve the Empire's remnants, while others, blinded by pride, demanded renewed offenses despite mounting losses and diminishing cohesion. Human reconnaissance, using quantum sensors and adaptive cloaking, intercepted these communications, allowing tactical anticipation that consistently outpaced enemy maneuvers on the ground, or rather, on the orbital and surface installations of newly liberated worlds. Human forces coordinated humanitarian efforts, alongside strategic operations, ensuring that liberated populations were not only free from oppression, but also equipped to defend themselves, fostering trust and loyalty that reinforced long-term stability. Every interaction, every decision, and every act of foresight built upon the previous, creating a lattice of influence that stretched silently across the expanse, invisible to those who relied solely on brute force. As battles continued near the peripheries of the Tlaar domain, humans demonstrated an uncanny ability to adapt not only to enemy tactics, but also to the unpredictable environmental hazards of space, leveraging asteroid belts, magnetic storms, and gravitational anomalies to maximize efficiency and minimize casualties. Each engagement became a lesson in ingenuity, with field commanders empowered to improvise while remaining aligned with overarching strategic goals. This decentralized approach contrasted sharply with the Tlaar's rigid command hierarchy, exposing a fundamental flaw in their ability to respond to dynamic threats. In one critical maneuver near the Karath Rift, a human task force executed a multi-vector attack that neutralized a Tlaar dreadnought without sustaining a single casualty, a feat that sent ripples through the galactic intelligence networks, forcing even distant observers to reconsider humanity's capabilities simultaneously. Human scientists developed countermeasures against previously unknown alien technologies, turning weapons designed for suppression into tools of liberation. Every adaptation underscored the inherent versatility and resilience of humanity. Back on Earth, the Council observed these developments with cautious pride, understanding that humanity was transitioning from a regional defender to a galactic influencer, capable of reshaping alliances, protecting the weak, and enforcing a form of justice that the rigid empires of the Oriath Expanse could neither predict nor resist across liberated sectors. The narrative of humanity's moral and strategic superiority spread through word, encrypted broadcasts, and first-hand accounts, fostering a culture of resistance against the Tlaar and empowering oppressed civilizations to act with agency. Even as the Tlaar regrouped and attempted to consolidate remaining forces, human countermeasures, adaptive, ethical, and ruthlessly effective, ensured that each offensive not only inflicted physical damage, but also eroded morale and unity among their ranks. The psychological impact of human strategy became as decisive as the kinetic victories, instilling a pervasive fear of underestimation that would haunt the Tlaar for years. In the midst of these operations, leaders like Elara Voss and Amara Singh maintained constant vigilance, ensuring that human actions remained aligned with their ethical code, refusing to exploit the vulnerable for advantage while simultaneously enforcing unassailable military dominance. This delicate balance between moral clarity and tactical efficiency became the hallmark of human influence, shaping the perception of Earth and its colonies as a civilization whose power could not be measured merely by ship counts or firepower. Every action, from evacuation missions to precision strikes, reinforced the emergent truth. Humanity did not conquer through intimidation alone, but through the combination of intellect, empathy, and relentless adaptability. As human forces expanded protective operations, minor species, previously subjected to subjugation, joined actively in joint patrols, intelligence gathering, and reconstruction efforts, further multiplying the reach and effectiveness of human influence. And in distant systems, the Tlaar High Command faced mounting evidence that their empire's foundations were eroding. Their previous calculations, based on arrogance and underestimation, proved fatally flawed. As the humans' coordinated interventions continued to liberate worlds, establish secure trade and communication routes, and integrate allied populations into their operational framework, the galaxy began to witness a profound shift in the balance of power, one where compassion and intelligence coexisted with overwhelming capability, forcing all who observed to confront an uncomfortable reality. that the underestimated humans, capable of defending the weak with unwavering resolve, were a force whose consequences could not be ignored. And as the Oriath Expanse slowly realigned around the emergent human influence, the Tlar and their hesitant allies learned that every misjudgment, every act of scorn, and every underestimation would be met with coordinated, ethical, and unyielding response, proving beyond doubt that when humans acted to defend the weak, even empires, mighty and proud, could fall in silence, and the seeds of galaxy-wide transformation, guided by human ingenuity, moral clarity, and protective resolve, had already been sown, silently reshaping alliances, hierarchies, and the expectations of all civilizations who dared to overlook humanity. The liberation of the Karath Rift systems marked a turning point in humanity's campaign across the Oriath Expanse, as human forces, operating with unprecedented coordination and adaptability, began to systematically dismantle the Tlar network of control, every engagement combining tactical brilliance with ethical restraint, ensuring that civilian populations were shielded even as enemy fleets and fortresses were neutralized. In orbit above a planet called Lasara, Captain Elara Voss coordinated simultaneous strikes with ground operations, orbital defenses, and civilian evacuations, her holographic displays flickering with hundreds of data streams that her crew interpreted with near telepathic precision, while strategist Amara Singh manipulated enemy expectations, feeding them false intelligence, luring the Tlar into traps where human ingenuity, combined with the knowledge shared by liberated species, produced devastating outcomes. Each successful operation reinforced the belief among minor species that humanity represented not only a military power but a moral compass capable of reshaping the balance of interstellar politics. The Tlar, confronted with repeated defeats and the collapse of their psychological dominance, began fracturing internally. Commanders debated whether to abandon their colonies or consolidate forces in a last-ditch effort to assert control. Yet every move was anticipated by humans who had studied their doctrine, culture, and patterns of behavior with meticulous care. On Lasara, humans worked alongside local resistance forces to restore essential infrastructure, train militias, and establish communication networks, ensuring that liberated populations could defend themselves in future encounters. These actions, though appearing secondary to military conquest, proved critical, creating pockets of stability that prevented the Tlar from exploiting chaos to reclaim territory. Across multiple sectors, humans implemented a decentralized command structure, empowering local leaders, scientists, and engineers to make real-time decisions within strategic guidelines, an approach that combined flexibility with cohesion and proved far more effective than the rigid hierarchies employed by their adversaries. Meanwhile, Admiral Ilyana Petrov oversaw the integration of quantum communication networks that allowed human forces to coordinate across light years instantly, maintaining tactical coherence while adapting to unpredictable developments. In one dramatic encounter near the Valnari Nebula, human frigates exploited gravitational distortions to isolate and disable a Tlar task force, rescuing thousands of enslaved civilians in the process, a feat that reverberated throughout the galaxy, challenging assumptions about both human capabilities and ethical priorities. As news of these operations spread, minor empires and neutral species who had long feared Tlar dominance began openly aligning with humans, offering intelligence, shipyards, and even specialized personnel to support ongoing campaigns. This network of collaboration amplified human influence exponentially, creating an emergent coalition that blended military efficiency, technological innovation, and ethical purpose. The Tlar, desperate to maintain authority, attempted counteroffensives that relied on overwhelming force. Yet each maneuver was anticipated and countered with precision, using a combination of sense of manipulation, adaptive shields, and coordinated strikes that neutralized their numerical advantage. The psychological impact of these repeated defeats further eroded morale, fostering dissent and indecision within Tlar ranks. As human forces advanced, they discovered ancient archives and hidden research stations that had been exploited by the Tlar to dominate subordinate species. Using these resources, human scientists and strategists developed new technologies and refined existing ones, enhancing mobility, defense, and precision without compromising ethical constraints. This continuous cycle of innovation and adaptation made every engagement increasingly favorable for humans. While the Tlar struggled to keep pace on liberated planets, Humans worked to create sustainable governance structures, blending local knowledge with strategic guidance, ensuring that freedom and stability went hand in hand. The act of protection became as much a weapon as the fleets themselves, with liberated populations contributing actively to defense, intelligence, and reconstruction efforts back on Earth. The Council observed with a mixture of pride and vigilance, understanding that the scale of humanity's influence had surpassed any prior estimations. The moral and strategic sophistication demonstrated by humans was creating a galaxy-wide precedent, compelling other civilizations to reconsider alliances, treaties, and expectations of Tlar. And an increasingly desperate council debated internal reforms, purges, and alliances to counteract human expansion. Yet every measure was undermined by human foresight, adaptive tactics, and the loyalty cultivated among freed populations. In one decisive encounter at the Valkorian Belt, humans executed a multi-pronged strike using previously liberated fleets, civilian resistance forces, and innovative weaponry, capturing or neutralizing the majority of remaining Tlar assets in the sector without significant human loss, a demonstration of power that reverberated across the expanse, signaling the inexorable rise of human influence. Even as the Tlar retreated to isolated strongholds, humans prioritized protection and stabilization of newly liberated systems over conquest, emphasizing the principle that their strength was measured not in destruction, but in the safeguarding of life and the restoration of autonomy. This approach, blending military dominance with ethical imperatives, created an unprecedented model of power projection, one that combined deterrence, protection, and moral authority in a way that no galactic empire had previously experienced. As the Oriath Expanse adjusted to this new reality, whispers spread among formerly neutral species, who began to anticipate human involvement in future conflicts, realizing that humanity's combination of strategic brilliance, technological innovation, and protective ethos made them an unstoppable force when provoked. Throughout every operation, leaders like Elara Voss, Amara Singh, and Admiral Petrov maintained clarity of purpose, ensuring that humanity's intervention remained focused on defense, liberation, and stabilization rather than expansionist conquest. Every choice, from tactical strikes to humanitarian initiatives, reinforced a singular truth. When humans acted to defend the weak, entire empires, long confident in their supremacy, could collapse silently. And as the liberated systems began to flourish under human guidance, a pattern emerged that reshaped interstellar politics, alliances, and expectations, marking the beginning of a galaxy where the underestimated strength, moral clarity, and relentless ingenuity of humanity defined the new order, a revelation that will be recorded in the chronicles of every civilization as the moment when humans, defending the weak, proved that even the mightiest empires could fall in silence. And the seeds of a galaxy-wide transformation, guided by human courage, intelligence, and compassion, were irrevocably planted across the stars. As the Oriath Expanse continued to realign under the influence of human-led operations, human forces pushed further into the outer reaches of previously Tlar-dominated space, their presence increasingly welcomed by liberated species who had endured decades of oppression, each engagement showcasing the combination of tactical precision, ethical leadership, and adaptive ingenuity that defined humanity's approach. In the Trivor Cluster, a coalition of liberated civilizations coordinated with human commanders to repel a coordinated Tlar counteroffensive, their combined efforts amplified by human strategic oversight and advanced sensor networks, demonstrating the exponential advantage of collaboration built on trust and shared purpose. Captain Elara Voss orchestrated simultaneous maneuvers that exploited gravitational anomalies, asteroid fields, and enemy overconfidence, turning numerical inferiority into strategic dominance, while strategist Amara Singh deployed misinformation, campaigns that lured enemy fleets into traps, minimized civilian risk, and maximized operational efficiency. Every move highlighted humanity's ability to integrate technological sophistication with moral clarity. In orbit above Lasara Prime, engineers and scientists collaborated to repair orbital stations, re-establish energy grids, and restore communication networks, ensuring that liberated populations were not only free, but also capable of self-defense and autonomous governance. The psychological impact of these visible acts of protection further demoralized the Tlar, who relied on intimidation and subjugation to maintain control, minor species witnessing human intervention began contributing intelligence, localized technology, and combat support, creating a decentralized yet highly coordinated network that exponentially enhanced human operational capacity. As fleets maneuvered through the complex web of liberated systems, the Tlar attempted desperate flanking operations, only to find their movements anticipated and countered with precision, every defeat eroding their command cohesion, instilling fear, and triggering internal dissent. On the diplomatic front, human envoys leveraged their successes to negotiate alliances, secure neutral territories, and offer protection to civilizations hesitant to engage militarily, presenting a model of strength intertwined with ethical responsibility that challenged long-standing assumptions about power projection. Meanwhile, the Oriath Council, observing from afar, began recalibrating its stance, previously indifferent or dismissive of humanity, recognizing that Earth and its colonies were rapidly becoming the linchpin of regional stability. Back on the battlefield, a coordinated human strike in the Corthian Nebula neutralized an entire Tlar squadron attempting to regroup, freeing thousands of enslaved workers and scientists who immediately contributed to the reconstruction and defense of liberated systems. The combination of military action, moral clarity, and rapid integration of allied personnel created a feedback loop of efficiency and loyalty that the Tlar could neither predict nor counter. Even as the Tlar High Command attempted to rally remaining fleets, they found themselves continually outmaneuvered, their rigid hierarchical approach proving incompatible with the fluidity and adaptability of human-led operations. In one decisive encounter, humans leveraged an unstable star cluster to isolate and disable a Tlar battle group, rescuing civilian populations while simultaneously capturing valuable intelligence that revealed weaknesses in enemy logistics and coordination. This intelligence, disseminated through liberated sectors, empowered allied forces to act preemptively, further accelerating the collapse of Tlar influence. As humans expanded protective operations, they emphasized resilience and self-sufficiency, training liberated populations in defensive tactics, technology maintenance, and strategic awareness, ensuring that the liberation was sustainable rather than merely temporary. Back on Earth, the Council noted that humanity's influence was no longer confined to direct intervention, but extended through diplomacy, protection, and moral authority, reshaping interstellar alliances and expectations. The Tlar, increasingly fragmented and demoralized, debated strategies ranging from full retreat to desperate offensives. Yet every initiative was anticipated encounter with human adaptability, technological innovation, and ethical foresight across multiple systems. Humans established secure trade and communication routes, enabling resource distribution, intelligence sharing, and coordinated defense that further consolidated liberated regions. Minor civilizations, inspired by human example, began to independently resist remaining Tlar enclaves, demonstrating the multiplier effect of human intervention. In the midst of these operations, leaders like Elara Voss, Amara Singh, and Admiral Petrov ensured that humanity's conduct remained consistent, balancing decisive action with ethical responsibility. Proving that strength need not compromise morality, the combination of technological mastery, strategic brilliance, and protective ethos fundamentally altered the perception of humanity across the Oriath Expanse, transforming them from an underestimated fringe species into a central force whose influence could not be ignored. As the Tlar receded into isolated strongholds, humanity's coalition solidified, blending liberated species, allies, and human colonies into a network capable of coordinated action across light years. Every victory, rescue operation, and stabilization effort reinforced the overarching principle: when humans defend the weak, even mighty empires can collapse silently. And as the galaxy observed, a new paradigm emerged, one where power was measured not only in firepower, but in the capacity to protect, inspire, and mobilize. And the seeds of a galaxy-wide transformation, rooted in human ingenuity, ethical clarity, and relentless adaptability, continue to spread across the stars, signaling a future in which humanity's underestimated potential was now fully recognized, feared, and respected. A civilization whose influence, guided by moral courage and strategic brilliance, had irreversibly reshaped the balance of power, proving beyond doubt that defending the weak could topple even the proudest empires, leaving an enduring legacy written not in conquest, but in the protection and empowerment of those who could not defend themselves. As human influence expanded across the Oriath Expanse, the Tlar remnants became increasingly desperate, their once formidable fleets reduced to scattered enclaves struggling to maintain control. Every attempt at counteroffensive met with precise, adaptive, and ethically driven human strategy that neutralized both their military advantage and psychological dominance. In the Alpha Expanse, Captain Elara Voss coordinated a complex operation involving orbital interdiction, ground-based sabotage, and the liberation of enslaved scientists, each element synchronized through quantum communication networks that rendered light-speed delays irrelevant. Strategist Amara Singh exploited enemy assumptions and predicted movements, creating situations in which the Tlar were forced into tactical concessions that preserved civilian life while decimating their combat effectiveness. Minor species, previously under the yoke of Tlar oppression, now contributed actively to the coalition, providing intelligence, auxiliary forces, and critical knowledge of local star systems that further amplified the effectiveness of human operations. Every engagement reinforced the principle that humanity's strength lay not in sheer aggression, but in the integration of adaptability, intelligence, and moral clarity. While the Tlar High Command descended into chaos, debating internal purges, desperate alliances, and scorched earth tactics, humans continue to stabilize liberated systems, establish governance structures, and train populations in defense and self-sufficiency, creating a sustainable model of interstellar liberation that extended well beyond immediate tactical victories. In a pivotal engagement near the storm-racked gas giant of Viridian, human forces executed a multi-pronged assault that disrupted a Tlar convoy transporting enslaved populations, rescuing thousands while simultaneously crippling enemy supply lines. The operation exemplified humanity's capacity to combine technological ingenuity, strategic foresight, and ethical decision-making in a way that no adversary had previously encountered back on Earth. The Council of Unified Nations coordinated resource allocation, scientific research, and diplomatic initiatives, supporting the frontline efforts while ensuring that humanity's reputation as both a protector and a formidable power continue to grow across the galaxy. Across multiple liberated sectors, communication networks facilitated coordination between human fleets and allied species, creating a decentralized yet highly effective command structure that allowed rapid adaptation to unforeseen developments. The Tlar, increasingly frustrated and demoralized, resorted to rigid formations and predictable tactics, only to be consistently outmaneuvered by humans who exploited every weakness and miscalculation. In one particularly decisive battle near the Nebula of Shattered Suns, human frigates employed gravitational manipulation and adaptive shielding to neutralize a Tlar strike group attempting to retake key orbital installations, rescuing civilian populations, and capturing critical intelligence that exposed vulnerabilities in the enemy's strategic planning. The psychological impact of these victories spread across Tlar-held territories, fostering dissent, desertion, and the eventual collapse of local command hierarchies simultaneously. Human engineers and scientists innovated rapidly, integrating captured Tlar technology with human systems to enhance mobility, defense, and communication, every development reinforcing the coalition's superiority while remaining aligned with ethical imperatives. As liberated populations witness the consistency, protection, and strategic brilliance of humanity, loyalty and cooperation increased exponentially, forming a network of defense, intelligence, and governance that extended human influence far beyond immediate military engagements. In the political sphere, human diplomats leveraged these successes to formalize alliances, secure neutral systems, and establish protocols that emphasize protection, stability, and mutual benefit, presenting a model of interstellar cooperation rooted in both strength and moral authority. The Tlar, confronted with repeated defeat and the erosion of control, debated total withdrawal, desperate negotiations, and internal restructuring, yet every measure was countered or anticipated by human insight, adaptability, and strategic coordination. Across the liberated sectors, humans prioritize long-term sustainability, providing training, technology, and guidance to ensure that formerly oppressed civilizations could defend themselves and maintain stability independently. This emphasis on empowerment, rather than dominance, further solidified human influence and reputation. In the final engagements of the Outer Expanse, human-led forces executed coordinated strikes that systematically dismantled, remaining Tlar. Strongholds, liberating populations, capturing strategic assets, and establishing governance frameworks that prioritize civilian protection and ethical administration. These operations demonstrated conclusively that humanity's combination of tactical mastery, technological innovation, and moral clarity could decisively overcome even the most entrenched imperial powers. As the Oriath Expanse realigned under the emergent human-led coalition, whispers spread among formerly neutral civilizations that Earth and its colonies have become the moral and strategic center of a new galactic order, a force whose capacity to defend the weak, adapt to unforeseen challenges, and exercise judgment with ethical clarity redefine the understanding of power. The Tlar, forced into isolated pockets of resistance, acknowledge the irreversible shift in balance, recognizing that underestimating humanity had been their gravest error. And as humans continue to stabilize, protect, and integrate liberated worlds, the principle that had guided every operation, when humans defend the weak, even empires can fall in silence, was proven repeatedly, leaving an enduring legacy across the stars that combined strategic brilliance, ethical leadership, and technological mastery, a revelation that would forever change the galaxy's perception of humanity, ensuring that their influence, founded on protection, intelligence, and moral courage, would endure as both a deterrent to aggression and a beacon of hope. For those previously oppressed, the seeds of transformed interstellar order have been sown, nurtured by human ingenuity, compassion, and unyielding determination, signaling that the underestimated humans, once dismissed as inconsequential, had now become the architects of a new era where justice, protection, and strategic mastery dictated the fate of civilizations. And in the silence of the defeated Tlar empires, the galaxy finally understood the full measure of humanity's power. With the remnants of the Tlar Empire scattered and isolated, humanity shifted focus from combat to consolidation, ensuring that liberated systems were stabilized, governance structures were firmly established, and defensive networks capable of deterring future threats were fully operational. Captain Elara Voss and Strategist Amara Singh traveled between sectors coordinating reconstruction, sharing knowledge, and mentoring local leaders, while Admiral Ilyana Petrov oversaw the integration of technology, intelligence networks, and fleet coordination to create a sustainable and resilient coalition. The liberated species, having witnessed the consistency, protection, and ethical clarity of human intervention, took active roles in administration, defense, and communication, reinforcing the human-led network with expertise, local knowledge, and cultural understanding. Over time, the coalition expanded to include neutral civilizations who, inspired by the example of humanity's restraint and effectiveness, voluntarily aligned themselves with Earth and its colonies, establishing treaties, trade networks, and defense pacts that collectively reshaped the political landscape of the Oriath Expanse. The Tlar, confined to fragmented pockets and weakened beyond recovery, faced an irreversible decline, their previous arrogance and dismissiveness of humanity now recorded as catastrophic errors. Their remnants either integrated into human-led alliances under supervision or relegated to isolated sectors where they could pose no further systemic threat. As human fleets patrol key sectors, ensuring the security of the liberated and allied civilizations, the broader galaxy began to internalize a profound lesson. That true power lay not solely in overwhelming force, but in the combination of strategic brilliance, moral integrity, and the protection of those unable to defend themselves. Across the Oriath Expanse, stories spread of human ingenuity, courage, and ethical clarity, inspiring entire civilizations to reconsider their approaches to diplomacy, warfare, and interstellar cooperation. This cultural shift was reinforced by public transmissions, historical archives, and first-hand accounts preserved by the coalition, ensuring that the narrative of humanity, as both protector and formidable force, endured back on Earth. The Council of Unified Nations formally recognized the achievements of human leaders, noting that their ability to defend the weak while simultaneously neutralizing threats had created a model of interstellar influence unmatched in recorded history. Strategically, technologically, and ethically, humanity had demonstrated that even a species previously dismissed could rise to shape the galaxy's future decisively. In the liberated sectors, humans worked tirelessly to train, mentor, and equip local populations, fostering self-sufficiency and resilience while maintaining readiness to respond to any emergent threats. This approach, created a robust and decentralized network of security and governance, ensuring that protection extended beyond immediate human control. The Tlar, relegated to isolated enclaves, increasingly relied on negotiation and cooperation to survive, a stark contrast to their previous doctrine of domination and subjugation. The psychological and cultural impact of repeated defeats had permanently shifted their perception of humanity, instilling a mixture of fear, respect, and reluctant admiration as decades passed. Human leadership continued to refine its approach to coalition governance, interstellar diplomacy, and technological development, ensuring that ethical principles, strategic advantage, and adaptive innovation remained intertwined. The galaxy gradually came to understand that the measure of humanity's strength was not merely in firepower or fleet size, but in the capacity to coordinate, protect, innovate, and inspire across vast distances and diverse civilizations. In ceremonial assemblies throughout the liberated sectors, leaders of once oppressed species formally recognized human commanders and advisors, honoring their role in safeguarding life, stabilizing regions, and guiding civilizations towards self-sufficiency. These acknowledgments cemented humanity's reputation as a moral, strategic, and technological exemplar. Across the Oriath Expanse, new treaties, alliances, and educational initiatives emerged, emphasizing collaboration, defense of the vulnerable, and shared technological advancement. The foundation of a new interstellar order was laid, rooted in the principles demonstrated by humans during their campaigns. Every decision, from battlefield tactics to humanitarian missions, had contributed to this enduring legacy as humans continued to monitor potential threats while fostering cooperation and stability. The galaxy learned to respect and rely upon a civilization that had proven repeatedly that defending the weak could alter the course of empires, influence entire star systems, and redefine the parameters of power. And in the quiet moments between operations, leaders like Elara Voss, Amara Singh, and Admiral Petrov reflected on the unprecedented journey from underestimated frontier species to architects of a new galactic paradigm, understanding that humanity's true victory lay not in conquest, but in the creation of a galaxy-wide network of protection, resilience, and ethical strength. The story of humanity's rise, etched into the annals of countless civilizations, would forever remind the galaxy that when humans defend the weak, empires fall in silence, alliances shift, and the underestimated rise to shape the future with intelligence, courage, and compassion. And as the stars themselves bore witness to this transformation, the Oriath Expanse and beyond came to understand a singular truth: humanity's underestimated potential, guided by morality, ingenuity, and unyielding resolve, had irrevocably altered the balance of power, ensuring that the legacy of protection, strategic brilliance, and ethical leadership endured across generations, securing a galaxy where the weak were safeguarded, the just empowered, and the underestimated rose to command silent yet unassailable influence among the stars, a testament to the enduring truth that when humans act to defend the defenseless, even the mightiest empires are destined to fall quietly under the weight of justice, wisdom, and unrelenting human resolve.